Corner. Today, we're going to be reviewing another book. Alright, so this is a very, very famous book. Also, kind of a classic. When you think of the most classic novels and the most famous classic novels, what do you think of? The Wizard of Oz? Yes. What's the second one? What's the most famous? If you guessed, it was Lewis Carroll's Whimsical World of Alice in Wonderland. You are right. Because it's the book we're going to review today. Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll. Although Alice in Wonderland is the name of the movie, the book's full name is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So, today we'll be reviewing this. And I also have my little bunny Carrot here to help me out. Also, if you watched the movie or read a little of the book, you might know the famous characters. First is the White Rabbit, and this is a White Rabbit. So this could be like kind of familiar to the story, if I may say so. If only he had a waistcoat and a pocket watch, that would be great. Alright, so let's begin. Also, I recommend you buy this book because firstly the cover is very pretty. Also, it has like quiz to see how carefully you read, and also word search, and a glossary, and a draw your own character. Alright, so let's get to the review part. So, Alice, I'm going to introduce the characters, which might take quite long, but I'm going to go for it. First, of course, the main character is Alice. The story wouldn't be right without her. Second is her cat, Dinah, who isn't exactly the important one in here. And third is her sister, which appears at the beginning of the story. Then the White Rabbit. Let's speed things up. The White Rabbit, the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, the Caterpillar, the Smoking Caterpillar. He smokes a lot. The Queen of Hearts, the King of Hearts, the Knave of Hearts, the Cheshire Cat, which is a very beloved character, also kind of creepy. The Mock Turtle, the Griffin. Let's see. All the cards. Who else? Oh, the pigeon. Alright, so I don't know if I left out any characters, but we'll get to them as we review the story. Alright. So at the beginning, Alice was sitting with her sister, enjoying the view, beside a tree. Her sister was reading a book, and Alice was very bored. She tried looking into her sister's book, but it had no pictures or conversations, and Alice thought, what's a book like without any pictures or conversations? What's the interest in that? So Alice began to wander around. She thought about making a daisy chain, but thought about the trouble of having to get up and pick all the daisies. Suddenly, something caught her eye. A white rabbit. It was hopping towards her. No, almost past her. It was wearing a very weird outfit. A green, I don't know, is this green or is this gray? I don't know the color exactly. They don't have color there. A green waistcoat, and it was holding a pocket watch. It took a pocket watch out of its waistcoat pocket. And then Alice thought, this is just a normal rabbit who's in a costume. What could be so special? But then the rabbit spoke. It said, oh, my ears and whiskers. I think that's what he said. Maybe. I'm so late. I'm really late. I must go now. Those are my just words. I'm not exactly sure what the real rabbit said. And then Alice was very curious. Alice is a very curious girl. So she followed the rabbit. The rabbit was hopping very fast, and then it came to a rabbit hole. Quite a big hole. I'm not sure what size it is, though I think it's about bigger than my head, maybe. So the rabbit jumped right down, and there was no sign of it again. Alice followed it. She jumped down after, having no idea of how to come out afterwards. So down, down, down she came. And it was kind of weird because it was like she was half flying, half floating, half falling. So like she was falling, but it was very slowly, like she was like swimming through thin air. Also, there were a lot of furniture around her. A bookcase, a kitchen, an umbrella, a jar of marmalade, which Alice was disappointed because it was empty. Down, down, down. She like fell down, like half floated down until she came down on a pile of sticks and stones. Sticks and leaves, I think. And then she was not a bit hurt. She jumped to her foot in a moment, and then she found herself in a hallway with a lot of doors. Blue doors, to be exact. They were the same, and then she tried to find a way out. Also, for like detail, the floor was checkerboard. Also, the ceiling was checkerboard, and all the walls around her were checkerboard, which made her very dizzy. So she went through the blue doors, trying to find a way out. And she found that all of them were locked. When she was gonna give up hope, she suddenly saw something. A teeny tiny blue door that I think is about this size. So she was very curious. She looked at the blue door. Then she turned around. To her surprise, she saw a glass table, which was definitely not there before. On the table was a little glass key. I'm not sure if it was glass or was it gold. Maybe glass. Alice took the key and she put it through the door. No, she didn't do that. No. So she saw the key and she tried the key in all the blue doors. She didn't try it on the little one though. But either the key was too small or either the lock was too big. Alice was feeling tired. Then she found that on the table, another object was on the table. A little glass jar. No, it's kind of a glass bottle. And there was a label on the bottle. Like it hung around the bottle's neck. Like kind of a bottle necklace. And the label said, "Drink me." This might sound very familiar to you guys. And the bottle, I think the liquid was green. So Alice, she was kind of very thirsty because she hadn't had anything to drink. So she approached the bottle. And then she thought, what harm could it be? What harm could it do? So she thought of all the stories she's heard of kids who got burned, kids who got poisoned, drinking weird things that they didn't know where it came from. She thought of this, but then she thought, maybe I should drink it anyway. So she did. She picked up the bottle and drank it, like gulped it down. So she was not even halfway through the bottle when a peculiar feeling started to pass through her body. That peculiar feeling made her feel weird. And suddenly, in front of her own eyes, she began shrinking. She began getting smaller and smaller and smaller until she was a few inches. That time, she had drinking the whole bottle, and she wasn't just a tiny little Alice. She was only a few inches. And then, she was the same size as the little blue door. So, I think this is kind of detailed and it will take quite long. So I'm just a quick saying. I think I'm gonna split into two parts because this story is very long. It's not short, of course. It's a novel. So I'm gonna do part one. This is part one, and then I hope you come back for part two. Okay, let's go back to the story. So she was a small little blue door. Then Alice said, "Yay! I could now go and see what's outside there." But then, to her very unfortunately for poor Alice, she had left the key on the table. The key which was supposed to open the door. Alice had tried that key before. I think I forgot to mention that. Yeah. And then she began to cry. She cried and she cried and she cried. So there were a pool of tears. Literally, a pool of tears. Alice's tears. They were salty, and the pool was very huge, like a swimming pool, a double swimming pool, a jumbo swimming pool. So suddenly there was a little mouse. It came scuttling towards her. Alice was very amused by this. I think the mouse was kind of her size because you know the size of the normal mouse, and Alice is like the size of the mouse, so of course. It scuttled past her, and then Alice shouted out, "Wait!" The mouse came back. And then I think it said something which I can't exactly remember. So Alice began talking about her pets. No, she had only one pet, Dinah. She talked about Dinah, and you know how mice feel about cats. They are afraid of them. Also dogs. She talked about her neighbor dog that always barked and was very cute. And the mouse asked what it ate. And she said the dog chased away all the mice in the farmer, quite forgetting about the mouse right that moment. So the mouse was so frightened of Dinah and the little puppy, she ran away. Alice called after her, and then the mouse came back. So, now how do I explain this? So I'll just say that the mouse led Alice towards like kind of a party. No, not a party. You know, like kind of like a group. And there were birds, quite birds and wetland animals. I can't exactly remember. I know that there's a pelican and just birds. I'll say that there are kind of ducks and those wetland birds. So Alice spoke to these birds, and then the mouse made a race to get them all dry. The mouse and all of the birds and animals, wetland, they thought the mouse was making up a charm to make them dry. So the mouse began talking about a tale, and Alice was quite distracted. So she thought the mouse's story was like the shape of a tail. Let's see if I could find the picture of the tail. Here. This is what Alice thought of the mouse's tail / tail. Like a tale is a story, like a fairy tale, but she thought of a tail as the mouse's tail, which is kind of very funny, as of the picture. Oh wait, and I forgot this detail. I was flipping through the book, and I found a detail. So before she found the mouse, the white rabbit came back, and then he dropped a pair of kid gloves. If you don't know what kid gloves are, they're kind of delicate gloves, like for parties, like what princesses wear, I think. At first I thought they were gloves for kids, but I was wrong. and a tiny fan. They were all very tiny because even though Alice was his size, the bunny was still small. So Alice, the bunny, the white rabbit, ran by and dropped it. And then, wait, did he say Marianne? And, oh, no. So he went by and Alice picked them up and tried to call after him. But the rabbit was not in sight. Nowhere in sight, in fact. So Alice began fanning herself with a little fan and holding the kid gloves. Suddenly she found out that she was suddenly growing taller. She didn't know why. She looked down at her hand. It was because of the gloves and the fan. So she tried to put them down, but she can't. So she tried again. She kind of put them down. She stopped getting taller. And then that's when the mouse came. I think that was, or maybe was it more complicated? All right, back to that story, that part. So the mouse, it was telling this tale, and then a bird said, "You're too long. Get on with the drying part, making us dry part." So the mouse agreed, and then it led a caucus race. This is what actually the chapter it's called. The chapter is called "The Caucus Race and the Long Tail." So they had a caucus race. So they raced around, but they had no trophies because this was the vision. And finally, when they were all done, the mouse told a tale, the long tail/tail. And then they were all dry. Alice began feeling hot. And that's where we will end this part of the video. So I hope you really like this first part. Please come back for part 2. I hope you have a good evening. Bye. And remember, always read. Come back for the next video, part 2 of Alice in Wonderland, of course. Like and subscribe. Bye, guys. Say goodbye to the white rabbit.